A third coronavirus vaccine is now available in the U.S. as the race to get Americans vaccinated as quickly as possible continues. Today, Johnson & Johnson has begun shipping out their single-dose vaccine. Federal regulators approved the immunization over the weekend. This vaccine is easier to distribute than the Moderna and Pfizer shots because it can be stored at normal refrigeration temperatures. So here to discuss this is Dr. Rick Nettles. He's the Vice President of Medical Affairs for Janssen Infectious Diseases and Vaccines at Johnson & Johnson. Thank you so much for joining us. So listen, when I first heard about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and how easily it could be transported because it doesn't require this higher level of refrigeration, I thought, I hope that it's going to more rural locations that may not have access to this specialized refrigeration. The shipments are going out. Do we know where the first shots are going to end up?
Well, the distribution of the vaccine is actually controlled by the government. And so we have shipped to McKesson, who is the distributor that the government has chosen. And then the government will move from there to distribute the vaccine, likely in accordance with what the CDC has directed them to do.
Since it's easier to distribute this vaccine, given that it can be stored at regular refrigeration temperatures, are there plans to prioritize these rural and hard to reach areas, or is it basically you're providing the vaccines and local governments, local jurisdictions will then decide where they go?
Well, it's more the latter. J&J provides the vaccine to the government, and then the government is selecting the sites where they want to ship the vaccine to. Much of the discussion over the weekend at the CDC on the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practice has reiterated to vaccinate those most vulnerable to severe disease and making sure that we have an equitable distribution process so that it's fair and just.
So last week, you told lawmakers that you were confident that Johnson & Johnson could deliver on its plan to have 100 million doses in the first half of 2021. Other vaccine manufacturers have made promises and found themselves, kind of trying to navigate hiccups that made it difficult for them to keep those promises. Why is Johnson & Johnson confident that you will be able to provide the number of doses that you say?
We've really worked in parallel with the clinical trials that we've conducted to scale up our manufacturing. Really an unprecedented effort. We're scaling up to produce nearly 1 billion doses of this year on a disease that didn't even exist a little over a year ago. And so we remain on track with our ability to deliver 100 million by the million doses this year through partnerships and scaling up our manufacturing capabilities.
Yeah. Your CEO, Alex Gorsky, was on our air this morning on CBS this morning, and he was talking about the 100 million doses that he expects Johnson & Johnson will be able to provide by the end of June. But the question that some people have is regarding the efficacy of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And there's perhaps some confusion when people think about this vaccine. Johnson & Johnson says it's 66% effective overall in the U.S., 72% effective at preventing moderate to severe disease, and 85% effective overall in preventing severe disease. Can you help elaborate for our viewers what this all means?
What we think is important is to be careful when you're trying to compare these results across other clinical trials that have been conducted. The J&J vaccine clinical trial was conducted at the height of the pandemic globally and in countries including South Africa and Brazil, where these troubling variants had already emerged. So the good news coming out of this trial, as you say, even with those variants and at the height of the pandemic, this vaccine with a single dose demonstrated 85% protection against severe disease, and we saw no cases of death or hospitalization that were associated with COVID-19 28 days after you've received your single dose. So we think that's really good news and an important contribution to ending this pandemic.
So the Johnson & Johnson vaccine has been approved for 18 and over, unlike the other vaccines, they're a little bit younger, I think 16. There are plans, though, to begin testing on minors, even babies. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how long it may take to see results?
That's right. So what we'll do is we will first move into adolescence. So we're hopefully in the very near future beginning clinical trials on adolescents 12 to 17 years of age. And then if the vaccine is found to be safe and effective in adolescents, we would then move down to children younger than 12. We hope those clinical trials in the adolescents start over the next couple of weeks.
So this vaccine uses DNA to code for the coronavirus spike protein instead of the messenger RNA that both Pfizer and Moderna vaccines use. What are the benefits to using DNA? In just thinking about when the mandate came, when you knew Johnson & Johnson was going to work really, really hard to get this vaccine out to Americans, what were some of the ideas that the scientists were talking about, because it is so different than the other two?
We've used this technology, it's called an adenovirus-based technology, to develop vaccines for other serious infections, Ebola, HIV, respiratory syncytial virus, and Zika. And we have a lot of experience with the platform. As you say, we've used that platform in children in those other diseases. We've also used it in pregnant women. So we are very happy with the safety profile of this adenovirus-based technology. One of the things that we're really happy with is that we see a broad-based immune response. So we see the antibodies that folks say are really important to measure, but we also see a cellular response as well. And so we think having a really broad response to the vaccine is something that's important and that we have seen demonstrated with the adenovirus-based technology that we're using.
All right, Dr. Rick Nettles, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.